the Dungeon Master. DM for short, or GM if you're cool. DMing is important because you need someone to explain the world, balance everything, and keep everyone together. And you're mainly going, and as the DM, you're mainly going to do scheduling. You're going to find everybody's time to schedule and set up sessions. It's probably going to be hosted at your house, and you're going to have to set it up and stuff. DMing is mostly important because yeah, you gotta have someone create the world, create the storyline, and such, balance encounters, and we're going to be discussing that here. Making your own world. It's it's best to, in my opinion, it's best to create your own world instead of a pre-written one. Your own world, you I I'd suggest starting small, just like creating like a small island with multiple key locations that you created with interesting stuff to do and interesting ideas and concepts. A good example is maybe there's like a couple tribes of barbarians that are all in a civil war and a massive conflict with each other. Maybe the players can go in there, sort of thing out, make some allies, and make some money. Pre-written campaigns. Pre-written campaigns are weird to me because on one hand you don't have to do any work, but on the other, it's very hard to like improvise. You can't really add or change anything because say someone's already played in one of those, they're gonna get really confused if something was changed, and it's also kind of boring to be in the same pre-written location. So I mean, it could be fine for your first game, but it does often cost money unless you want to find it online, which is legal depending on what you're doing. DM styles. There is multiple DM styles where the first one is non-linear, which is pretty good for new players, but I personally don't really like it. How how linear storytelling works is there's X, Y, and Z, and there's a set route and things to do to achieve X, Y, and Z in that order. Next up is nonlinear, where you have X, Y, and Z in a story, but there's no set way to achieve X, Y, and Z, and you can do it in any order, like Y, Z, X. And then finally there's sandbox. This requires the most improvisation, as as you basically just create the world and the players mold their own story out of it. It's a sandbox. That's what they're doing. They're just molding their own story. But here's a tip for all of you. The best one I've found that works for all players is sandbox nonlinear. And how sandbox nonlinear works is you have a sandbox, the players can do whatever they want and mold their own story, but you have an optional non-linear type game. For example, how this would work is so say the players, yeah, like they can decide to take over the world complete, and they could ignore the plot. And how you would set this up is, yeah, you create the world, you could all the players can do it, and then you create plot. You create a whole plot that is entirely optional for your players to do. I've run for four groups over a year for a year. I've run for four groups. I found the sandbox nonlinear works for everyone, but every group is going to differ in which one they lean towards between the sandbox and the nonlinear. I've had groups that are entirely sandbox and groups that are entirely nonlinear. Improvisation. Improvisation is your most important thing while DMing. You got to figure out on the fly what things are there and what's happening. The world does not exist without you. I recommend figuring out improv by having a bunch of ideas and knowledge of what you want and have in your world, and kind of like some idea, and have a general idea that you then expand upon in your mind in the background. For example, you could have a talking sword. That like the whole idea is it's a talking sword, but then you can expand upon it later, saying that like it interacts with magic and maybe has a wild magic feature of its own. This could go with maybe like a blade singer wizard, for example. Rules. You're going to want to know or have a general idea of the basis of the rules. For D&D, having the player's handbook has like all the base rules in it, and you can find that online, a PDF of it for free, and don't worry, it is legal. The thing is, D&D is not about it's not about not about memorization of all the rules. It's about applying the rules. You're allowed to look up the rules at any time, and you will eventually have like all the rules memorized, and the players will help you, because everyone has different knowledge of the rules and can all help each other out. Just be warned that rules lawyers, as we call them, which are players that like know like all the rules and like have to have like all those rules set in stone, which isn't really a good thing, because the rules are supposed to be bent and homebrewed and changed to the DM's discretion and whether or not the players want them changed. And improv, yeah, you're going to have to improvise villains, characters, what motivations, because you never know what the players are going to do. And like a Star Wars campaign, they could randomly travel to Tatooine. You had nothing planned there. What you could do is you could have it. Oh, they find a slave mine, where people are like mining out sandstone or something, and there's an inquisitor there, and he's managing these. There's an inquisitor, like a Sith Lord there, and he's managing these slaves. Or you could have like a hut there. Just have some general ideas and just improv based off of those. Balancing is very tricky. Knowing the base rules will make balancing a lot easier. It's best when with balancing is that if a player wants like a homebrew, you find something in the game that's a lot similar to that, and then reflavor it and change and tweak it a little bit. And for balancing, you have to balance an encounter. There is something on D&D that's called like challenge rating. Though challenge rating is pretty bad, but it does give you a decent idea. Like a wolf is like 1/4 challenge rating, and if you got a level 1 party of 5 people, you might want to have, say, like 4 wolves, because 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 equals 1. But if you have a party, but if you've got a party of like 5 individuals, you probably want more, or just a stronger creature. As a party of level 5, a good level boss that's very challenging, would be a challenge rating 12 creature. For example, would be a beholder. Beholder's challenge rating 12. But that's still going to be very challenging, and if your players are very new, they're probably going to die. If they're and pay attention to your players' power levels and how much damage they're able to output. That is the best way to balance. Well, one of the best. Homebrew. As I previously stated, it's best to take something from the game and then tweak it until you have what you want. That is the easiest way to have homebrew and have it balanced. But I do recommend running over your homebrew with a bunch of other people. And if you want to homebrew a subclass, before you homebrew a class, homebrew subclasses first. Subclasses are a lot easier to do, but you will want to know that class inside and out and how the subclasses are structured before you homebrew a subclass. A quick note, the wizard in D&D is the hardest one to subclass for, and you'll see how that works if you ever want to try homebrewing a subclass for wizards. Your first time DMing, I don't recommend for your first time DMing, do what I was saying, sandbox nonlinear, and make your own small like little island, which is what I did, and it worked out pretty well. But just a warning, Do not just start with a session 1. Start with a session 0 that mainly just introduces the characters a little bit, and like you test some encounters on. You can test some encounters on them. You can start up some story and kind of get a little bit of a feel for DMing. But like, and test out some balancing and stuff. I do recommend having your players be at level 5, as it's very easy to balance for level 5. It's not too strong and it's not too weak, and they can also do multi-classing if they want to without having to without and still be able to actually multi-class. Unlike starting at level 1, well, level 1 is extremely weak and they'll die to like everything, and nobody can multi-class, which makes it makes a lot of people not really like it, because there's a lot of people, especially older players that have been playing for quite a while, love multi-classing, and someone like me, that's all. I only multi-class. I don't just stick to one class. And level 5, you can also have them fight pretty strong creatures for their level. Like as I previously mentioned, you can have them fight a beholder if you got a good sized party. Have a session 0. Have it be very easy on yourself. And if you have a bunch of new players, just hope that things go well. You're going to have to help them with their characters and stuff. And you're going to have to help them with their characters. It's going to be difficult, but trust me, and it's going to suck. It's going to suck. Your first thing is going to suck pretty bad, but you will get better. You will get better as time goes on, and after like a month or 2 months, maybe even 3 months, you'll be a great DM. And that's all I have to say. Thank you. Goodbye.